Hey, Minot, good afternoon, and welcome into our first ever Ask Me Anything with the City of Minot budget. Today, we are doing something new. We're answering your questions about the proposed city manager budget for 2023 and with an emphasis on public safety. My name, Derek Hackett. I am the Public Information Officer with the city, and joining me, as you see on your screen here, are three very hardworking individuals. City Manager Harold Stewart. Hello, Harold.
Good afternoon, Derek.
Police Chief John Klug. John, say hi to the people.
Good afternoon.
And Fire Chief Kelly Cronschnubble. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, Minot.
So, yeah, so here's what everyone can expect this afternoon. First off, this is all about the proposed 2023 city budget. Hopefully you've had a chance to maybe read up on that, whether it's through the media, on our website, what have you. If you have questions regarding public safety for 2023, drop them in the comment section. We'll try to do everything we can to answer those questions, depending on timing and volume. We'll do our very best, but please keep them geared towards public safety. We're planning on about 45 minutes this afternoon. I'm here just to facilitate and to ask everybody the questions, and these three beautiful minds are the ones that who crafted the current proposed budget. They'll be here to do their very best to answer all of your questions. First off, let's go with some kind of expected questions. And Harold, this one's for you. This was your budget you presented to City Council just a week ago. We can change. This is a $182 million budget, but that number is a little bit misleading because that's not all from property taxes or sales taxes, right? In fact, maybe about a third or so is. So when we look at the $26 million in property taxes, about half of that goes to public safety. Can you give us sort of your elevator pitch on this budget and how you prioritize needs versus wants with regard to public safety?
Yeah, so it's a pretty deliberative process as we go through the budget. It's a mix, a lot of hard work by the staff, including the two chiefs here, the finance staff, as well as the city council. So it's kind of a mix. We had a new tool this year as well with regards to the results from the community satisfaction survey that we did last year. At the end of last year. So we're looking at things that the community is telling us that we're doing well, the different things that need improvement, that our citizens expect better service from us, and where is that? And so we have some questions specific to public safety. Fortunately, police and fire both have very good satisfaction ratings throughout the community, as was indicated by the results of the community survey. But as we delve in there, we want to continue to maintain quality service there. So it's this budget reflects a mix of both the community survey results, the needs that staff have identified or the department heads have identified that they need to be able to do their jobs better, more effectively, more efficiently over the next 12 to 18 months, as well as input from the city council themselves specifically. This was an area that the city council, one of their main goals and objectives that they gave staff back in June was to focus on public safety and to provide more assets and resources if possible. And so this budget does try to respond to all of those components in the recommended budget.
So here's our first question, actually, from a viewer. We'll go with that. This one's from Ray, asking about payment for police and fire from each respective department. They're wondering if there's any plans on maybe increased pay for staff to kind of retain the employees we have. Do any of you want to maybe comment on 2023 and what we're doing to try to retain our staff with in reference to pay and benefits?
I guess I can lead off on that, and then the chiefs can follow up on that if they choose. So we do have about a 5.1% across the board average of increase in salaries. So we are paying attention to that. We also just concluded and used some data and some statistics from a regional-wide wage study, comparing ourselves to other communities and other major employers within the region. That's what we built that 5.1% salary increase off of. And I'll let the two chiefs respond here. I don't know that we necessarily have as much of a problem of retaining employees as much as when we have open positions of recruiting employees in. And that's not a problem necessarily unique to mine. I believe Chief Kelly, the fire department's fully staffed right now. We do have many open positions in the police department right now. That's also a trend that we're seeing across the country right now in the police career field. I don't know that necessarily just that paying a lot more money towards that is going to fix that problem. That may be one part of the solution. We are trying to make sure that the wages are competitive, particularly in comparison to the state and the county and other surrounding police departments. But at the end of the day, it's a challenge recruiting police officers into any police department across the country. And as I visit with other city manager colleagues throughout the region, that's a common issue and challenge. But again, I'll be quiet and I'll let the two chiefs respond to that as well.
Yeah, I can jump in here, and recruiting and retention are very important within law enforcement, but it is a struggle nationwide. I don't think we've really had any issues with the pay. Of course, it's nice to compensate our employees well, but we haven't lost positions with the excuse of I need to go somewhere that pays more money. Usually, it's just maybe a place that their family wants to go that is different than Minot, but we haven't seen a big push for wages as the reason for losing some of our staff.
Anything to add there, Chief Kelly, is in respects to fire department?
Currently, I can echo what Chief Klug said, is that they're not leaving due to the wages. It's for other reasons, usually personal reasons, family reasons. We had a high turnover in 2018 timeframe, and that was a lot of the individuals that we brought in due to the boom and the huge push for personnel, and they had looked all over the country for people, and they were all kind of looking to go back home. They got a few years under their belt, and it was time for a change. But right now we are fully staffed. We are pleased to say that. And in reference to the question that was just asked by another individual here, is the fire department considered fully staffed with the new station being built? We will be adding 3 people next year to staff that station. And I know that's a question that Derek, you wanted to ask. Do you want me to go right into that?
Yeah, and because I was going to get to that one. That one's from Terry, and I had another one kind of piggybacking off of that in respects to building a new fire station. And in the 2023 budget, you're adding 3 new positions. How is it that we're able to staff a brand new fire station by only adding 3 bodies? So go ahead and finish that off, Kelly.
Well, going back to that 2018 timeframe, because we had such a high turnover during that time, with turnover, we lose that training, we lose credentials that people need to have in order to have a well-run fire department. So what we did during that time, we had 2 rescue trucks that we had online. We took the rescue trucks offline and we put all those personnel on engines. So we were running 4 fully staffed engines with the platform, which is the big ladder truck. That allowed us to have the right credentialed personnel driving the trucks, as well as the right credentials for their EMT, their medical training, because the younger ones were the ones that were running the rescue trucks. Well, when all the newer people didn't have those credentials, we couldn't run the rescue trucks anymore. Because of that change, when we talked more about Station 5 coming online, which we had bought the land at about 2017 timeframe, so we knew that this was coming at some point. We left everything changed. Even though we were getting people trained up, we left the change. We left the engines fully staffed instead of putting those rescue trucks back online, because that way we could take the personnel that were on the rescue trucks and shift them to that new station with only adding 3 people. Personnel is the greatest cost for our operation, and to save our citizens in the budget area, saving the cost of doing business for us, with just having the 3 people, we didn't have to add the 12 that would normally be asked for a station. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you very much, Chief. Now we'll move over to Chief Klug here in regards to 2023. There's a feasibility study on the property that City Hall and the police department are now. Well, City Hall's moving to downtown in the spring of 23. So it looks like we're doing a feasibility study on that footprint on whether or not it works with our current police department. Can you tell us about maybe why we need to do this study, and if you're making any contingency plans if this doesn't come up the way that you maybe had hoped?
Yeah, thanks, Derek. I think it's important for people to understand that the police department has been just a piece of this building for many years since it's been built. And when the former Fire Station 1 moved out of this building, we inherited the space that the fire department was in. And we've done our best to utilize that space effectively for our department. As the department has grown and we've added personnel across the ranks, that space is no longer adequate for our locker rooms, our outer room, our fitness facilities. It's pretty small. So the more people we add and the more space we need, that hasn't grown with our needs. So we did budget a portion of a feasibility study for in this year's budget, 2022. The rest of it's in 2023. I'm currently working on the RFP to put that information out and see if we can accomplish at least a portion of that study, or hopefully all of it this year, and not have to dip into the other money that we budgeted in 2023. We want to get a better look at what this building has to offer. Does this fit our needs moving forward, or is it in the best interest of the city to not invest a lot of money in remodeling this and finding a different site for a police department? And those are all the questions that we hope to have answered. Part of that, there have been a lot of discussions lately about the municipal court and potential move. We'll also be looking at that facility and including that portion to see, is that location that they're in the best spot? Should we look for something different? Does that incorporate at all into this facility that we're in right now? And how feasible is it that space would be available? So a lot of questions to ask, and we're hoping that the right firm can put our needs into this puzzle and see if it comes out as a beneficial move for the city and for Minot.
Harold, not to put you on the spot, do you have anything that's from a city manager's perspective to add about sort of the feasibility and finding a permanent home for our police department?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing here is I think the city of Minot is trying to do a good job of trying to use existing facilities for as long as they can. Over time, things become outdated, they break down. And ultimately, how police work was done 30 years ago is different than what they're doing now. And so the building doesn't necessarily adapt the same way that the career field is. And so we potentially are running into a situation where while we've been trying to make do with the facility that we have currently as best we can, we're running into some spaces now where how it's laid out currently is inefficient and ineffective in many regards. And so I think we owe it to the citizens to do our due diligence and to look at all factors with regards to this. Can we still make this building work? If we can, what does that cost? What does that look like? But also being prudent with the taxpayer dollar. If it costs, and I don't have any estimates or numbers here, so don't quote me on this because I'm just throwing some numbers out. But let's say it costs $20 million to renovate and remodel the current city hall. Well, there may be an estimate of only $12 million to build a new facility. So should we spend $20 million renovating a current building that we already have, or is it more effective and efficient to spend less money and build a building that better suits our needs? Those are the types of questions that we need answers to. And I think the feasibility study will give us an unbiased view of what that looks like and hopefully provide the answers that the citizens will be looking for as we as a community deliberate what needs to, how do we meet the needs of the police department for the future when it comes to a facility.
Now, you mentioned meeting needs, so I'm going to stick with you, Harold, on this next question. As city manager, you held a June seminar or like a retreat with your city council, and they laid out some priorities for this budget before we started doing this. Oh, that was the spring. I'm sorry, I said June. What at that retreat earlier this year, what type of guidance were you given from the council regarding public safety specifically as we move to budget and plan for 2023?
Yeah, so last year's part of the budget process, the council developed the four aspirations that are guiding values and principles from their perspective for the community and the organization as a whole. And this year we added another layer to it where we had the council develop specific goals under each of those aspirations. And when I believe it was underneath the aspiration of safe and welcoming, that the council developed a specific goal to enhance public safety and meet their needs both from an equipment and an employee standpoint, even if it meant more cost. And so that was one of the major considerations as I put together and as I worked with the two chiefs and the rest of the management team on putting together the city manager recommended budget this year. So most of our new position requests are actually within public safety. We have the 3 new firefighters, and we had the 3 positions under the police department. Now, Chief Klug requested many more positions. There is more need there. We had to balance that out with what we could afford to do as well at the time. So again, just trying to follow that direction. Again, tying back to the community survey, we had high satisfaction ratings when it came to police and fire from the community. So we want to maintain that. Police and fire, public safety is a core service that we provide as a city organization to our citizens. It's the main reason why you choose to live inside a city and pay its taxes is for that police and fire protection. And again, both of our departments do a great job. Our fire department has one of the best ISO ratings that we can receive, and we have potential to improve on that a little bit more. So I think we're delivering well in there. So we want to continue to provide that high level of service, but also adapt to ongoing pressures and changes that we're seeing. So one of the new positions that's recommended to be included is a public outreach coordinator. That's to help both police and fire connect with the public better, be more communicative, build those relationships within the community. We don't want to run into a challenge or an issue like Ferguson, Missouri, or Minneapolis. It's important that you develop those community outreach relationships to help adapt and change over time. And then we also added a position with regards to the drug task force is in the recommendations. We're seeing significant demand on our police department with the opioid crisis and challenges, and felt that more resources were needed there to help keep our community safe as best we can from that situation. So kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but we did have specific direction from the council underneath their aspirations that public safety needed to make sure that it received the resources it needed to continue to provide a high level of service.
Well, you alluded to this next question. I had one submitted this morning via the website. It is about one of the positions for PD in particular. I'm going to read it in its entirety, in its context here. With the current, and it was sent anonymously, with the current inflationary economy and tight local budgets, what is the justification for adding an outreach position to the PD? I think we'll probably start with Chief Klug on this one.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. We, looking at our department, one of the main criticisms we receive is our lack of outreach with the community, especially when it comes to social media. So we wanted to focus a little bit more. We wanted to provide better information, more timely information on those different platforms, so that people could get the information they wanted as quickly as possible. It's also an important thing, as the city manager alluded to build relationships before you have any incident that might spark something in a community or some negative response in a community. So if we can start building on those relationships, it should also help bring a number of, that sense of maybe discomfort that, as the survey kind of pointed to, some people feel a little uncomfortable when it gets dark out. They feel a little uncomfortable, maybe downtown or in some of the more the business areas of the community. So we want to provide that sense of comfort, and one way to do that is to engage our community. We have a limited number of officers to patrol the whole city. So if we can have those eyes and ears in our community, feeding us information so that we can respond quickly to the areas that need police attention, that's the best thing we can do. So that engagement, hopefully we can build those relationships, and it'll also provide that same opportunity to the fire department, and give them that capability to let people know what we do day to day, and give them that information as quick as we can, and make sure it's accurate. If we can beat the story, or we can lead the story, it's just going to help the department out overall. So to me, this was a top priority. I think that's one of our main roles, is to be well connected with the community.
Now, Chief Kelly, Klug mentioned that this would be an asset to fire as well. Do you feel like this could be an added benefit to your department while we're on here? Oh, you might be muted there, Chief.
In the
That's
community,
show business, baby, right? It happens.
I totally agree with everything that Chief Klug said. In a community survey, that was one of the areas that we were lowest in, was getting information out to the public. And I wanted to boost that. And this was absolutely a way that we could tag on to this important new position. And there's so many things that when police is there, fire's there too. So it's kind of, they'll be looking at different things that we can get involved in the community. And so I think it'll be a win-win for both departments.
Okay, Chief Kelly, we're going to stick with you once again. We're going to go back to the fire station. Station 5, under construction as we speak. A lot of things moving. It's starting to look like a structure now in Northwest Minot. It's expected to come online in 23, if I'm not mistaken. What is the most current update, if you would just update us on the progress over there on 4th Avenue for Fire Station 5, and how does sort of equipping that and getting that ready to go impact the 2023 budget?
Well, it is starting to look like a building. I guess the walls are going up. I haven't been over there for a few days. It's scheduled to go online about June of 23. I just got an update from our truck group, and they said that our engine that is ordered for that station should be here about May or April of next year. So it'll be right on time. We're looking at adding personnel about that same time so that we can put them through a 8 to 12 week academy, depending on what their background is. So everything's moving along. We've been doing so much planning for this station that we've actually started stockpiling a few things as we go along, especially when we can write a grant for something that could take pressure off of the needs for Station 5. We've been doing that, and There's been many gracious groups that have given us some grant dollars to be able to buy equipment for this. We do have an extensive inventory list for both the station and the engine. This isn't like taking and moving from one house to another. We have to buy everything. And there's no place to steal from. You can't just take a kitchen table from one station and take it to this one. So there's a lot of needs. We started kind of looking at different things the last couple of years. Yes, there's a hefty amount in next year's budget, but we've actually been taking some of this year's budget, and as we see a sale or we're buying something and we can add on one or two that we might need for next year and get a bulk rate, we're doing that to take the pressure off of next year's budget. So those are kinds of things that we've been doing right now to try to reduce the amount of need for next year's budget.
Okay, I'm going to do one more plea because I'm running low on questions. If anybody out there has any questions for either Chief or Harold regarding public safety for the proposed 2023 budget, now's the time to get that in before we wrap up. Meanwhile, as they're ruminating on what they may want to ask, Harold, I have one for you. When you presented the budget to council, you mentioned that a great deal of investments in 2023 will be that new staff, that salary and survey. And we touched on this kind of at the beginning of our forum here. But that staff survey that you presented to council was north of $1 million in salary adjustments. Can you explain, from a city manager perspective, the importance of that investment and how it may actually help with public safety for Minot?
Yeah, so, there's a lot of potential challenges that are going on that are creating pressures. To a certain extent, we are like most businesses. We're trying to recruit from a very limited pool of people to provide our services. When minimum wage goes up, when you have the impacts of like the oil boom here with the Bakken, all that plays into the pressures on that hiring pool and who you can hire from, and it applies pressure to salaries and wages. We need competent people and good people to be able to work for us and provide these services. Everyone wants to be able to rely on their police department and their fire department to show up when we need them. We take a lot of pride in that, and that means we have to compensate in a fair way, which is why I appreciated one of the first questions was, about, making sure that we're paying our police and fire appropriately so that we can keep them here to provide service to the community. So I think that's the right way to think about things. And we try to think about that as well. Unfortunately, though, there is a lot of pressure on costs. And again, as I sit in meetings with my fellow city administrators and city managers throughout the 4-state region, all of us are having these same pressures. Last meeting I sat in, I think I heard estimates of anywhere between 4 to 7% increases in each of these communities throughout North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, and Wyoming. So we're all seeing these pressures. It's an important thing to keep track of. We do want to be an employer of choice. We want to hire quality people, and we want to pay them competitive wages that they can continue to be here as a part of our community and provide for their families. I do want to kind of dovetail off of the previous answer to a question with regards to Fire Station 5. So I think this is an important note that maybe most people here in Minot or North Dakota don't realize what they benefit from. Most communities, if they're going to build a fire station, they don't have money to pay for that. It's usually bonded out over a 20-year period. So I think due to the good work of the council and the staff previously in managing budgets and those kinds of things, we've been able to have cash on hand to be able to build these buildings without applying that as a tax burden to the community for the next 20 years. So we do try to be prudent with our recommendations and our decisions. We do try to look ahead and plan ahead and set aside money for future needs. And I think it's a great demonstration of the work that the staff and the council have done over the last several years, that we're in a financial position that we don't have to bond out a project like building Fire Station 5. So it's tough work, sometimes tough decisions, but I think we're going the right direction.
We do have one from Miranda Schuler here at the top of the queue. I'll read it for you guys so you don't have to. Have the recommendations of the Civil Service Committee to update the pay structure overall been taken into consideration for the upcoming budget year? Now, I'm not familiar with that recommendation, so I defer to you, Harold, on this question.
Well, I know that the results of the salary survey were taken to the Civil Service Commission. They had the ability to tweak some of the recommendations of the HR director. So as far as salary increases are concerned, those were implemented 100% into the budget this year. That's built into that 5.1% across the board wage adjustment, which includes the results from the salary survey as well as typical year-to-year longevity pay and pay raises and those kinds of things. There may be a component there as well of needing to look at how our pay scales are structured in general, as far as like compression and pay ranges and those kinds of things. There is probably some work that we need to do on that, but that's probably going to require some more consulting services. And our HR department is looking at that. And I do believe we have some consulting budget built in to begin looking at that in next year's budget as well, if I understand the question correctly.
Okay, I open it up to the three of you. We do have someone sidelined as well. It's our comptroller. It's Jenna Zielinski. She's probably upset that I just put her on screen without letting her know. But if anybody has anything else to add before we wrap up this public safety budget forum, or ask me anything, unless we get any more questions in, I give you the floor for anything you want to say as we continue through the process of adopting a 2023 budget, which is going to be weeks long, quite frankly. Going once. Going twice. All right. I think we got everything then. Hearing nothing. Thank you three for your time. Jenna, thank you for your time as well. She's in charge of all the numbers, so that's why she's here. We appreciate you taking time to answer community questions this afternoon regarding public safety and the 2023 budget. A reminder to everybody watching, we're doing this again Friday. It's more of a general government slant towards the 2023 budget. So if you have any questions like that, feel free to drop us a line. You can send it to us on Facebook, or you can be convenient if you just use our website, mindednd.org/mailbag. You can submit questions straight there, and we'll get those answered for you on Friday. Public Works and Streets will be next Tuesday. Thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you three for making yourself available. Have yourself a good Wednesday afternoon.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Have a